Good day everyone! Today, we will discuss about Chapter 9, Biodiversity and Healthy Society, Genetically Modified Organisms, Science, Health, and Politics, together with my three members, Ms. Rosemary V. Miranda, Ms. Patricia Ann Mendoza, and Mr. Mario Joshua Mendoza. So, let's start. These are the topics that I will discuss. First is what is biodiversity. The second one is some terms related to biodiversity. And the last one is patterns of biodiversity. So class, what comes in your mind when you hear the word biodiversity? Biodiversity is a short for biological diversity, which means the variety of living organisms, the genes they contain, and the ecological system in which they occur. Also, biodiversity is the sum of all different species of animals, plants, fungi, microbial organisms living on Earth, and the variety of habitat in which they live. Some terms related to biodiversity. Genetic diversity refers to the variety of genetic information contained in all of the individual plants, animals, and microorganisms. Specific diversity refers to the variety of living species. Ecosystem diversity relates to the variety of habitats, communities, and ecological processes, as well as the amazing diversity that exists within them. Here are the pictures that will explain what is alpha diversity, beta diversity, and gamma diversity. So alpha diversity is the species diversity present within each forest and grassland patch of the slope. Beta diversity is the represented by species diversity between the two patches of their communities. And the gamma diversity is the species diversity along the entire range of the mountain slope. Extinct are species with no living specimen present on Earth. Extinct in wild are species with only few members present on the Earth, but in the wild state, rather under SQ conditions. Critical endangered are organisms few in number but under severe threats. Endangered are plants or animal species with sufficient number but under severe threat. Vulnerable species are species with restricted distribution but under threat. Low risk. Some of the crop, plants, and animal species with less economic importance can survive for several years. Deforestation, removal of forestry plantation. Reforestation, various forestry plantation in habitat which has been deforested. Afforestation, plantation of forest trees in fallow land where no plantation was earlier done. Patterns of biodiversity. First, species-area relationship refers to the relationship between the number of species of plants and animals and the size of a specific area of land, as one would expect larger areas of land will usually contain more species of plants and animals compared to smaller area of land. Latitudinal gradients. It is the species diversity follows a regular pattern as we move from the equator to the polar region. The plants and animals diversity are observed to be maximum at the equator and it decreases as we move toward the poles.
The content is importance of biodiversity, biodiversity loss, and the cause of biodiversity loss. Why biodiversity is important? First, biodiversity serves recreation and tourism and support the ecosystem to provide us with many services. Second, human beings are dependent on their well-being and enjoyment of life on basic biological system and processes. And also, people get food and many medicine and industrial products from wild and domestic component of biological diversity. What is biodiversity loss? Refers to the decline or disappearance of biological diversity, understood as variety of living things that inhabit the planet. It different levels of biological organization of their respective genetic availability as well as the natural pattern present in ecosystem. They are the causes of biodiversity loss. First, the habitat alternation is the change in land use or land cover that has an impact in local ecosystem. Habitat alternation include farming practices. In farming practices like using pesticide that killing the pests and insect, and also it may affect the ecological balance from ecosystem. Second, declearing forest. Deforestation like cutting trees that may affect the habitat or ecosystem of the population of organism. Once the ecosystem destroyed, it can cause destruction of ecosystem and also it can cause ecological imbalance. Third, the hydroelectric dams is connected to clearing forest because cutting trees can affect the level of water reservoir. And fourth, the urbanization and suburban sprawl. And lastly, the grazing animals and livestock. The effect of grazing on rangeland biodiversity include removal biomass, trampling, and destruction of root system, and replace the wild reserve by livestock. The second causes of biodiversity loss. The invasiveness species that enter new ecosystem and multiply, harming native species and their habitat, often accidentally or even deliberately introduce human. The example of invasiveness species, the introduction of non-native animals and plants to new environment that make a large damage and raise level of competition resource. For example, the Incanto, Podoza, zebra, and mussels. The third causes of biodiversity loss. Pollution. Pollution is any matter or energy released in the environment that causes undesirable impact on the health and well-being of human or the organism. Water pollution. One of the causes of water pollution is mining. Agricultural runoff. It is converting of the industrial into subdivision that may affect the all living things. And the third one is the air pollution degrades. The air quality can be degraded by man-made resources, include volcanic eruption, windstorm, dust, and man-made resources include pollution from moving vehicles, toxic gases from industries, coal powdered plant, burning wood, and other materials in the open air landfills. And lastly, the oil and chemical spill is one of the most devastating environmental disasters that can happen because it may affect the people, the animals, the land, and the coastal waterways. And also they can kill wildlife, destroy habitat, and contaminate critical resources in the food chain.
The content is, what are genetically modified organisms or GMOs? Process of making GMOs. Uses of GMOs. What are genetically modified organisms or GMOs? Genetically modified organisms or GMOs are living organisms whose genetic material has been artificially manipulated in a laboratory through genetic engineering. This creates combinations of plant, animal, bacteria, and virus genes that do not occur in nature or through traditional crossbreeding methods. Process of making GMOs. First, identifying the genetic information or gene that gives an organism, plant, animal, or microorganism a desired trait. Second, copying that information from the organism that has the trait. Third, inserting that information into the DNA of another organism. Then, growing the new organism. Example of process of making GMOs. As you can see at the picture, this example uses a type of insect-resistant corn called BT corn. Keep in mind that the process of creating a GMO plant, animal, or microorganism may be different. Making of GMOs plant step by step. First, identify what trait they want that plant to bacillus have, such as resistance to drought, herbicides, or insects. Then find and synthesis organism. Second, copy. After scientists find the gene with the desired trait, they copy that gene. For BT corn, they copied the gene in BT that would provide the insect resistance trait. Scientists use tools to insert the gene into the DNA of the plant. By inserting the BT gene into the DNA of the corn plant, scientists gave it the insect resistance trait. This new trait does not change the other existing traits. Fourth, grow. In the laboratory, scientists grow the new corn plant to ensure it has adopted the desired trait, insect resistance. If successful, scientists first grow and monitor the new corn plant, now called BT corn, because it contains a gene from Bacillus thuringiensis. in greenhouses and then in small field tests before moving it into larger field tests. GMO plants go through in-depth review and safety tests before they are ready to be sold to farmers. Current use of genetically modified organisms increase crop yields, mas mapapalawak, papadami yung aanihan, reduce cost for food or drug production, reduce need for pesticides. Dahil nga sa GMO, hindi na masyadong kailangan yung pesticides. Enhance nutrient composition and food quality. Resistance to pests and disease, greater food security, and medical benefits to the world's growing population.
The contents are: A. Are GMOs really dangerous? Letter B. Am I eating foods that come from GMO crops? Letter C. Risks and benefits of GMOs. What is GMOs? GMOs is genetically modified organisms are engineered to be more efficient and resilient. Deployed correctly, GMOs can help ensure we have climate-resilient agriculture, sustainable farming, climate change solutions made by scientists, visual learning. Are GMOs really dangerous? The World Health Organization, the American Medicine Association, the National Academy of Sciences, and the American Association for the Advancement of Science have all declared that there's no good evidence of GMOs are unsafe. Hundreds of studies back up that conclusion, but many of us don't trust these assurances. We're drawn to skeptics who say that there's more to the story, that some studies have found risks associated with GMOs and that Monsanto is covering it up. As you can see, these are the examples of GMOs products. What are the 7 risks and benefits? What are the new unexpected effects and health risks posed by genetic engineering? Number 1, toxicity. Genetically engineered foods are inherently unstable. Each insertion of a novel gene and the accompanying cassette of promoters, antibiotic marker system and vectors is random. GA foods producers simply do not know where their genetic cassette is being inserted in the food, nor do they know enough about the genetic chemical makeup of foods established a safe place for such insertion. As a result, each gene insertion into a food amount to playing food safety roulette, with the companies hoping that the new genetic materials does not destabilize a safe food and make it hazardous. Each genetic insertion creates the added possibility that formerly non-toxic element in the food could become toxic. Number 2, allergic reaction. The genetic engineering of food creates 2 separate and serious health risks involving allergenicity. The first is the genetic engineering can transfer allergens from foods to which people, though they are allergic, to food that they think are safe. Number 3, antibiotic resistance. In theory, when a genetically modified plant is eaten, such genes can be transferred to bacteria in the gastrointestinal tract of humans or animals. The bacteria could go on to develop resistance to the specific antibiotic. Subsequently, that antibiotic could be ineffective in treating humans affected by the resistant bacteria. The risk of such a gene transfer is very small, but it is nonetheless taken into account when assessing application for, say, field trials or market approvals. Number 4, immunosuppression. The well-respected British medical journal, The Lancet, published an important study conducted by Drs. Arpad Fustai and Stanley W.B. Ewen under a grant from the Scottish government. The study examined the effect of rats of consumption of potatoes genetically engineered to contain the biopesticide Bacillus and thuringiensis. The scientists found that the rats consuming genetically altered potatoes showed significant detrimental effects on organ development, body metabolism, and immune function. Cancer. Along with its approval of GA foods, the FDA in 1993 also approved the use of genetically engineered recombinant bovine growth hormone or RBGH used to induce dairy cows to produce more milk. At the time, FDA assured consumers that the milk was safe. Since then, however, regulatory bodies in both Canada and Europe have rejected the drugs, citing numerous animal and human health concerns. Perhaps, of the immediate concern for consumers is that research shows that the levels of hormone called insulin-like growth factor or IGF-1 are increased in the dairy products produced from cows treated with RBGH. The Canadians and Europeans further found that the FDA had completely failed to consider a science study which showed that the increase of IGF-1 in RBGH. Milk could survive digestion and make its ways into the intestine and bloodstreams of consumers. These findings are significant because numerous studies now demonstrate the IGF-1 is an important factor in growth of breast cancer, prostate cancer, and colon cancer. Number 6. Loss of nutrition. Genetic engineering can also alter the nutritional value of food. In 1992, the FDA's Division Food Chemistry and Technology and Food Contaminants Chemistry examined the problem of nutrition loss in GA foods. The scientists involved especially warned the agency that the genetic engineering of foods could result in undesirable alternation in the level of nutrients of such foods. They further noted that these nutritional changes may escape breeders' attention unless genetically engineered plants are evaluated especially for these changes. Once again, the FDA ignored findings by their own scientists and never subjected the foods to mandatory government testing of any sort. Ethics and implication of GMOs. There are 5 sets of ethical and implication concerns have been raised about GM crops. Potential harm to human health, potential damage to environment, negative impact on traditional farming practice, excessive corporate dominance, and the unnaturalness of the technology. Number 1. Potential harm to human health. This could result from differences in nutritional content, allergic response, or undesired side effects such as toxicity, organ damage, or gene transfer. Number 2. Potential damage to the environment. Biodiversity loss. The use of some GM crops can have negative impact on non-target organism and soil and water ecosystem. For example, the expansion of GM herbicides tolerant corn and soil, which are twinned with herbicides, has destroyed much of the habitat of the monarch butterfly in North Korea. Negative impact on traditional farming practice. Agriculture is the leading source of pollution in many countries. Pesticides, fertilizer, and other toxic farm chemicals can poison fresh water, marine ecosystem, air, and soil. They also can remain in the environment for generations. Number 4. Excessive corporate dominance. The dominant theory of corporate power holds that the corporate world commands so much power that it is dominant force at work in society, able to effect changes that further its own interests. Because the interests of large corporations don't necessarily dovetail with those of smaller entities such as small business, the individual, or with society at large. The concentration of power in the hands of those who run the biggest corporation is problematic. Number 5. Unnaturalness of the technology. Unnaturalness is thus a way of talking about radical uncertainty or ignorance about the effects of a new technology. It is not the only source of uncertainty in the world. The consequences of human action are generally unpredictable. But we nonetheless have confidence in the future if we believe we will be able to cope with the range of things that are like to happen. Policies and politics of GMOs. What is game policy? The use of genetic manipulation and other techniques to produce genetically modified organisms or GMOs is common in plant science research. Transgenic plant and plant pests are subject to federal and state regulation, rules, and guidelines.
Thank you for watching and listening. We hope that you understand our lesson. Again, good day and keep safe.